If you're just joining us, we just wrapped up a discussion about a local issue involving some police brutality. And now we're gonna have a gas. Oh yeah, no,
Oh wow.
I got my dad jokes out today.
Oh
But
wow. Well done, Chunk.
yeah. You might have seen the pictures, the memes, and Lawrence, I know you wanted to dive in a little bit more, a deeper dive than just like people filling up, plastic totes and plastic bags with gasoline. I've got a little bit to say about like kind of hoarding and kind of how that it's weird.
Okay, so for those
Go ahead.
for so let's start with a little bit of the basics and let's dive in. Let's dive in a little bit more. All right. So Colonial Pipelines. It's a pipeline that's a private pipeline that goes from Houston all the way to Jersey. Shout out Houston, Texas, shout out Jersey. They service um everything between Houston and Jersey. They service a lot of the East Coast um gas markets. And if you have not heard, they got hacked. They got hacked. um so because they got hacked, a lot of their stuff got shut down. Um, that wasn't the most egregious part about this pipeline. There was a oil leakage that was so bad that their sensors did not catch it. It was actually some kids that were riding their bike that saw it seeping out of the ground, and they did not in any way have the technology to. They didn't have the technology to sense that it was a problem, and they didn't act immediately to try to fix it.
I'm
So
really glad that you brought that up, Lawrence, because just like I know most people who you just have heard about the story thought like, oh, there was a computer glitch and now people are doing ridiculous hoarding stuff. But like there's some environmental, I don't know if you call it catastrophe or damage, but go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to really
yeah,
put
so
that.
like so the problem. Wait, I'm trying to see if I got it set up. Is it good? Am I good? Can you see me?
Mhm.
All right. Trying to get trying to get some stuff fixed around here. Okay, so the issue, and this is the main issue that I have of the story, is that first of all, this oil pipeline, this industry that serves a overwhelming majority, overwhelming portion of East Coast gas, right? Power and facilities and things of that nature. First of all, their systems were so jankety that they got hacked and it just shut stuff down. Obviously, it's bad for people like you and myself, average working Americans who have to still go to work, that relies on the buses, that relies on uh, public transportation and other means so that we can make a living. But at the same time, we've argued this. I've argued this. This is the reason why, as we've seen in Texas before, when you don't have proper regulation, things like this can happen. Things like this will happen, and entire sections of our country will be shut down
Yeah.
and just be left in the wayside.
Yep, exactly. And like one of the things that I know that like some of these pictures are kind of funny, and like there's literally an episode of It's Always Sunny about Philadelphia where it's like the whole like the image of people filling up garbage cans with gasoline. I mean, it's really funny because like I remember, so Always Sunny is like it's a sitcom from late aughts, early 2010s, and there's an episode where like during that time period there was similar gas crisis. It was a little more prolonged, and the whole joke of the episode is like they're filling ridiculous containers full of gasoline with the idea that they're going to turn around and sell it, and filling garbage cans full of gasoline was the punchline. Like the idea was like it is so silly and hilarious. Like this would be a hilariously stupid way to transport gasoline. And in the wake of this pipeline thing, you've got all of these images going viral of Americans filling up garbage cans and totes, and like there's this picture of a trunk full of plastic bags filled with gasoline, and I don't know it. Obviously, we're going to see like the most extreme and ridiculous cases of it, but beyond just how kind of funny and dumb those images are, I think it does speak to it's a very unhealthy pathology with the way that certain Americans respond to crisis. Now, a lot of people, there's a difference between like hoarding and preparation. Preparation is just getting key supplies, being ready if there is a crisis, and most importantly, being prepared to assist your community and your neighbors should a crisis unfold. Whereas you see kind of this unhealthy hoarding mechanism that really does speak to kind of like a lot of the selfishness that gets ingrained in us as we're growing up, surrounded by American capitalism and neoliberalism. Go get mine. Is there's this prospective gasoline shortage. Like the shortage hasn't even really taken any sort of visible effect yet, and yet you've got all of these people filling up barrel after barrel of gasoline, even though like scientifically, let's remember gasoline has a 3-week shelf life. They're probably not even going to be able to use most of that gas, but it's just this ingrained kind of thing like, oh, there's a crisis. Some people respond by saying like, oh, I have to protect myself at the expense of others, and also I'm not even going to do the homework, figure out like how long will gas survive in a garbage can. I actually read somewhere that like the image of the plastic bags, like gasoline will eat through plastic bags, so somebody is about to have a very messy and flammable trunk in a day.
Oh man.
But yeah,
I feel like all right, hold on, just getting stuff. Okay, that's better. I feel like for me, it goes back to what these multinational corporations do and think about us, right? This corporation, Colonial is owned by BP. It's owned by Koch Industries, right?
it's called,
and there's a history.
That's a bit on the nose, folks.
Yeah. So and it's in there, and it's in our and we've seen throughout history what happens when these corporations have to deal with regulation, or there's an issue that that ends up being detrimental to the people that they're trying to serve. They wait for the government to give them money to bail them out or things of that nature, right? But they don't fix it. They double tap. They're not going to fix it. We're going to have to pay out of pocket for it. So we're paying them to fix their own problem. They privatize the gains of fixing said problem. But when they do something that messes up, they socialize the losses. We all feel those losses, as in our drinking water is not serviceable. Gas stations don't have fuel. Power plants won't be power plants that use some of this gas will not have to function. People's electricity will not be cutting on, or things of that nature. So it has detrimental effects. Yet they don't want to follow the regulations to make sure that we, as a society, stay functioning. Yeah, maybe I'm missing something. I'm not sure if I am.
No, but that is a really like on point analysis. Really thinking of like, how that's like kind of just the economic corporate structure of how these events play out, and that kind of seeps into the way people think about these things.
For example, 2/3. This is coming. I'm reading. I have a tablet up right now that I'm reading from an article. 2/3 of North Carolina's gas stations don't have gas because of this situation. That's crazy. Like that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you are in a business that will detrimentally affect that will negatively affect the lives of Americans on a mass scale, in my opinion, it should be nationalized. It should be government run, because there's no reason why, if we really truly care, like if we truly care about energy independence, and this is actually that goes to another story that I want to talk about, because they were talking about putting wind farms on the East Coast and things of that nature. I mean, hey, we talk about energy independence. Now, you wouldn't have the type of environmental damage that you have from an oil leak or a gas leak or a spill or it being hacked, because I don't know how you hack the wind. But but I mean, you could stop the turbines from working and like things of that nature, but it's a cleaner, safer way for people to get their energy, and you wouldn't have the environmental effects of oil spilling into water systems. The Biden administration, and this is actually one of the few things that the Biden administration has actually talked about doing, that I actually support. It doesn't go far enough. It's not a Green New Deal type thing, but putting more financial money, because as Reuters talks about it, they're going to put like $2.8 billion into making sure that more wind farms are going to be created on the East Coast. $2.8 billion is a drop in the bucket compared to what we spend on our military, what is spent on healthcare. Like, we spend more money using trying to fly F-35s that don't work, like flying warplanes that don't work. But we can invest that into our infrastructure so that power plants, that homes, that hospitals, that daycares will have power, and we don't have to rely on foreign oil or even fracking in our country to make sure that people have power. That's a fantastic thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Like it, and it does reveal a lot about like the weakness of that infrastructure, especially when it's built and developed for profit. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of what just happened. Was it the Suez Canal just a couple months ago, where just this one canal that was disrupted, really like completely disrupted global trade for several days. But I think you put a real fine point on it. When our energy infrastructure is dependent on these for-profit corporations, particularly that are using extractive fuel that, I mean, let's not even get into like the kind of moral bankruptcy of fossil fuel capitalism, but they basically are incentivized to make there is no like safety net underneath to make sure things don't happen, like all these gas stations in North Carolina not having gas, because it is not in their does not financially benefit them to do so. Whereas, like you said, if you were to nationalize it, put it into the hands of the people, then yes, we would have a direct incentive to make sure that these systems have better redundancies, there's better crisis plans, all that.
I would even I'm not for I don't actually support this plan, but this is the one time I'm actually going to give Alaska any credit. One of the things that Alaska did when it comes to oil production, they gave basically a UBI that was from the products of those oil companies. They gave checks to the people of Alaska, basically saying, this is the only one of the good things that Sarah Palin ever did. That, yeah, this oil company is going to use the land in Alaska. When this oil company makes profit, he's going to share that profit with the citizens. I am not for it, because I actually think that we should be getting off of fossil fuels, because can't spend money if we can't spend money in a society if the society is no longer here. But it's if you are conservative, that would be a much better way of dealing with these companies, that the people are more accountable for what this company does, especially when it's on their land. But yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, how do you feel about Line 5? We see those commercials on YouTube and on and on YouTube every 5 minutes that Governor Whitmore doesn't want to give American workers jobs, and Line 5 would bring American jobs.
You know, that it is really amazing, like how they've ratcheted up the propaganda. Where I think it's almost like hubris. Like they thought there's no way ever that the state government is going to be able to stop this pipeline, and both Whitmer and the cell have basically, to their credit, had a lot of follow through and pursuing the shutdown of that pipeline. So now they're, again, it's these cheap kind of attempts to try to get the public on their side. And like, yeah, you'd be listening to the radio, like I'll be listening to The Touch or KFR or something. I'll hear these pro Line 5 messages directed at people like you and me. And one, it's gross, it makes me sick. But also, like, I think people are too smart for that right now. Like, even a lot of Michigan conservatives are very hesitant about having a pipeline in the Straits of Mackinac because anything happened to it, like, oh no, it could cost them money, like the tourism business. I mean, that's why they care. But
I mean, it's not like we haven't had an oil spill happen in Kalamazoo in 2012. Like, it's not like we didn't have the largest freshwater oil disaster in American history. Like,
I think that's exactly it, though. Like, we have way too many people in Michigan who know exactly what happens when chemicals like oil or whatever else gets in the water. Oil, lead, PFAS, chemicals. Like, our state has been saturated with stories like this for the last several years, which I think gives, despite how much money they're putting in the radio advertising, really puts Enbridge on a weak foot. They have to argue against the direct experience of thousands, if not millions, of Michiganders. And how they expect to do that is a good question. And like,
yeah,
the
man.
momentum is on the side of the people who have been fighting against this pipeline. Enbridge hates it. They can't stand it. And they are, like when you back a wounded animal into a corner, they're going to come out with the claws. And I think this is kind of the phase of what we're seeing from Enbridge. They're just throwing everything in the kitchen sink out to keep this pipeline active, and facing just a lot of common sense resistance to it. Again,
this is how I feel about it. I'm like, okay, when the pipeline breaks, if they want to do this, when the pipeline spills, they must then turn all their profits and all operations of their company to the Michigan people. When the pipeline breaks, they must submit to socialist control. To socialist control of their company.
I don't know. I wouldn't let. We just got to shut that thing down. And if that thing's still,
I also want to just shut it down. Like, let's be clear. I want Line 5 to be shut down. It's not gonna bring sustainable jobs, nor is it something that I feel like we can be investing into when it comes to other things that we can be investing into: solar, wind, and other renewable energies that will better protect the lakes, the Great Lakes that we are surrounded by.
Yeah. I always hate that talking point too. Like the whole pipelines equals jobs things. Like the maintenance of an oil pipeline creates like a handful of permanent jobs.
Right.
And actual construction of like pipelines and stuff, those are temporary gigs that last at most like maybe 4 to 6 months. And then the workers involved have to find something else to put food on the plate. You know,
I just realized something, and I don't know why I didn't think about this before. We live in Michigan. 6 of the months that we live in, the lakes are not accessible because they're frozen.
yeah, there's actually
Like,
been a lot of discussion. If an oil like a worst case scenario would be if a leak happened during the winter in the Mackinac Straits, like in a particularly cold winter, it would be hellishly difficult to try to clean that up, virtually
mm,
impossible, and it would just lead to really terrible ecological devastation
mm,
in the lakes because just getting pumping or getting oil out of water is difficult the best of times. Doing it during like frozen ice over conditions is virtually impossible. Like it's
mm.
huge.
That just hurt. That just
Yeah.
oh god,
That's
that
why it
hurt
needs
my
to be shut
feelings.
down. You
Yeah.
know?